Good evening, everybody. Hopefully, I've sorted out the audio issues. Yes, it looks like it's good from my end here, so that's positive. I think the audio has been solved. Don't know what's going on with my computer these days. This afternoon we had a chat, Rasa and I, on this channel here. So if you're curious to kind of dig in and sit with us for a couple hours, feel free to watch that video. I was saying I've been having some issues with my computer. It's making me a little nervous. The other day it decided to just shut down on me, and I couldn't turn it back on. It's only about a year old. It's this Lenovo, far from a high-end computer, but I don't think it's the cheapest on the block either. So I got an antivirus program on here, did a deep scan, nothing came up, which is good, thank God. 24 hours later, it just worked again. But then I've been having issues with my microphone, so I feel like there's some sort of bugs going on, and I don't quite know. Everything is up to date. Hopefully, it sticks around. I do have a external hard drive, and it makes me think when this shit happens, I gotta dump a whole bunch of stuff onto an external hard drive to make sure I don't lose anything. A bunch of stuff to get to tonight. We'll talk some music. We'll talk a couple of YouTube videos I've watched recently. We'll talk some books that I picked up today and yesterday. I've got some library books, and then there's a few things that I read this past week that we'll quickly talk about. I don't remember which ones we talked about last Sunday. I think everything that I've got here is stuff that we haven't spoken about yet, but I'm actually not sure. I'm actually really not sure because I feel like maybe we did a Sunday chat last weekend. Let me just double check what I've got written down in the old book here. So as far as my reading list, I'm up to 123, which is great. Yeah, okay, good. So this stuff we haven't talked about. I don't have it written in the book. Yeah, so 123 is the magic number. Really slow going this year. We're already we're in May 19th. So who knows if I'm going to make the 300 this year. For the first time in quite a few years, actually, I've been pretty on top of doing all that stuff. So speaking of numbers, let's talk numbers. A couple of things came across that it seems to be one of the big topics of debate is always whenever it comes to any sort of war that's going on is the casualty numbers. And there's a lot of kind of back and forth about casualty numbers. I know there was something very recently that was, I think, debunked as far as numbers coming from Hamas, etc. I don't know the details of that specifically, so I hesitate to talk about anything directly related to that. But I did want to talk about numbers in general and what it means and what I think of that whole back and forth on it. One of the shows that I watch sometimes is a YouTube channel called Trigonometry. They're based out of the UK. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of those guys. They say a lot of stuff on there that I don't agree with, and I'm not. For the most part, I'm fond of the way that they do their interviews. They do give their guests a lot of time to speak. Like a lot of these channels, though, they tend to focus on the same kind of few topics kind of repeatedly, which just gets a little dull to me. But I will say that recently they had on the man, the myth, the legend, Norman Finkelstein was on, and they had an hour and 40-minute conversation. And it was fantastic. Daryl D, how you doing, Daryl D? Before we dive into this, I went out today to two shops looking for that Doom one shot, and both shops have sold out. I might have to go to my big shop on Tuesday, Galaxy Comics, who they usually have a stockpile of Marvel and DC. So I haven't got my hands on the issue yet. Thank you so much for bringing that to my attention. For those of you who don't know, the Doom one shot. They've referenced some MF Doom lyrics within the comic, which is amazing to me. I think that's fantastic. So Daryl was nice enough to kind of send me a message on Instagram to tell me about that. I was toying with getting that issue anyway. Um, I like the Doom character enough. I don't know how much I know about him versus other Marvel characters, but it just seemed like something that might be an interesting read, period. So the added bonus of having some MF Doom lyrics in it um, sent me over the edge as far as wanting to pick it up. So thank you very much. Shout out to Daryl D. Let's see here. Asking the questions. I think it's this one here. So this is the channel for people that don't know it. Trigonometry. Norman Finkelstein. Konstantin Kisin is this guy's name, and I'm blanking on this other guy's name. They're both British characters. I think both of them were comedians and also got into politics and things. Like I said, I'm not a religious viewer of this channel because I'm not fond of all of the topics, or the majority of the topics, to be honest, that they talk about. They have had some interesting guests on over the time that I've been watching them, though. And like I said, the thing that I'll give them huge props for is allowing people the chance to speak pretty much uninterrupted. They ask some difficult questions, and they ask Norman Finkelstein some difficult questions. Norm does a pretty good job. If you're familiar with Norman Finkelstein, he can talk. He's not. He's rarely at a loss for words, and he can kind of ramble. So I feel for any interviewers that have to interview Norman Finkelstein to try to keep him focused and answering questions. One of the questions then Konstantin has asked a couple of guests recently about what's going on and is in with Palestinians. Is, do you feel Israel? I'm trying to get his wording. Do you feel Israel? I believe he said had the right to retaliate when they were attacked on October 7th, and for some reason, the guests have a hard time answering that question. And I guess I don't fully understand why that is, because to me it's a pretty simple. He plays this question as almost like a gotcha, like, well, if you agree that and I wonder sometimes if the worry about responding is, if you agree that they had a right to defend themselves and attack, then why do you have an issue with these people getting killed and yada yada yada. I feel like maybe people think it's leading to something else, when in my mind it's a really simple answer, which is yes, of course they have a right to attack. That's not the thing that people are taking issue with. The thing that people are taking issue with is the percentage, the amount of people that they've killed, and the amount of people that have died that have been not related to Hamas, that have been not related to their supposed target. That's where the issue is. The issue isn't in the retaliation and the fighting in general. Well, the issue obviously is with the fighting in general. Nobody wants to see people at war. Nobody wants to see people dying needlessly. But the bigger, broader picture is the sheer number of people, of Palestinians that have been killed, civilians specifically. One of the other things, so kind of taking that as a jumping off point, I do feel like it's always worth listening to Norman Finkelstein. I do absolutely understand that he can be challenging. So I don't fault anybody who sees an hour and 40 interview with Norman Finkelstein and kind of hesitates to watch it. But I find him interesting to listen to. He's very knowledgeable. He studied the region for a long, long time. He's a really smart motherfucker, and I love listening to guys like that. The other thing that comes with numbers is it's almost like a this next one is almost like a even a broken clock is right twice a day. Your friend and mine. Oops, do that. We don't want to do that. Sorry, everybody. Push the wrong damn button. Your friend and mine, Mr. Broken Clock himself, Piers Morgan, went viral with a clip where he was speaking to a gentleman named Avi Hyman, and the conversation, it kind of went viral. A clip of this went viral. The conversation of numbers arose. And while he could cite the amount of Hamas militants they killed, he couldn't offer any number of the civilians that have been killed. The only thing that he could offer is that the Hamas numbers were false. Well, how do you know that they're false? What numbers do you have? Well, we don't have any numbers. And he wouldn't answer the question. It was an amazing clip. And I guess one of the things that surprised me the most about this clip is that how is it that Piers fucking Morgan is the one who's asked this question before anybody else has? How is it that none of these officials have been asked this question of, so what are the numbers? If the Hamas numbers are wrong, what are the numbers? And what have you counted? How many civilians have you guys counted that you've killed? How many, if you know, and if you know the number of Hamas militants or terrorists that you've killed, why don't you know then the civilian number? So how are you determining that number yourself? You can't keep saying that the Hamas numbers are false if you don't have numbers of your own. But of course, they don't want to say a number because any number is going to seem horrific. 1,000, 100, 500, 30,000, whatever the number is, it's going to be horrific. And then it's them admitting that they've killed civilians and they know how many. So the numbers game is a big thing. And I would say that, yes, it's important. Of course, it's important. I don't think that it's the be all end all in my opinion of it. If it's 30,000 or if it's 20,000 or if it's 10,000 or if it's 5,000 or if it's 1,000 women and children who had nothing to do with this that are killed, I think that's a travesty. I think that's a fucking, it's disgusting. And I think it's horrifying. And especially what's happening in the States, especially when it comes to the colleges and kind of people going after those protesters. I don't remember who it was that I had listened to that it said it, but the idea that people are pissed off about this one specifically and protesting is because this one specifically is being funded by the United States. It's being funded by the UK. It's being funded partially by Canada. There's all these kind of Western countries that are funding this massacre, genocide, murder, whatever words you want to use for it, right? So I think that's what really gets people's blood boiling. Again, it always goes back to the same thing, and I know it does get a little tired, but living here in Winnipeg, middle of winter when it's minus 40 below, I'm seeing motherfuckers sleeping in bus shelters. I'm seeing people camping out in doorways, and there's money. The amount of money is kind of irrelevant. There's money and support going to another country that is committing these horrible acts. And I think that's a travesty that we're not helping out people within our own country and within our own cities, and instead doing things like that. Beyond that, it's all just kind of disgusting in general. No matter who's doing the attacking in any of these conflicts, it's kind of gross. So I would suggest checking these things out. Again, Piers Morgan, in no way is this me promoting Piers Morgan as anything other than a fucking idiot that he is 90% of the time. But again, every once in a while, some of these guys have an interesting angle. And also a guy like Piers Morgan, because he's such a belligerent prick, it is kind of gratifying in this situation that he doesn't let him go. He keeps asking the question. He asks it so many times that this Avi completely shuts down at one point and just stares at the camera and is just completely silent. So a very telling little viral clip that went around that I would suggest checking out. And then the last one coming from the same channel. I've talked about him before. John Mearsheimer comes back to Piers Morgan. This is a couple of times he's appeared on Piers Morgan's Uncensored. I'm a big fan of John Mearsheimer. He knows way more than I'll ever know. And it's just a pleasure to listen to him. And one of the things that continually amazes me about John Mearsheimer is his ability to kind of communicate these ideas. This is in this particular interview, this is probably the most heated I've ever seen him get. Generally, he's very, very calm and very measured. But even in this one, he barely raises his voice. And I really love that about him. He always there's a number of times in this he's like, this is just my opinion on this situation. It's like, yes, he does have this experience and he does have this knowledge and he has studied the region again. In no way, though, does he present it as my answer is the only answer. Here's just my view on something that I've paid close attention to. He doesn't expect everybody to agree with him. He doesn't understand when people don't agree with some of his points that in his mind are just fact, like we need air to breathe, we need oxygen to stay alive. It's those kind of comments sometimes that you can see he just doesn't understand that people don't accept those fundamentals. But I find him really great to listen to. I've been listening to him for quite a while, since by quite a while, I mean since kind of the Russia-Ukraine conflict kind of ramped up into high gear. His videos started going viral from a number of years ago, and I watched some of those in the past and have kind of stuck with him. He's made his rounds on a lot of these YouTube type shows. So another one I would recommend, like I said, there's 2 interviews. Here's the other one here from 2 months ago. I think both of them are worth your time. One is 50 minutes. This one here is 36 and a half minutes. Yeah. And again, in this one specifically, I will also give credit to Piers Morgan. He does interrupt him for sure. That's just the way he does these things. But I do find that he is listening to him. I do believe Piers when he says that he loves having him on and he feels like he learned something from him. I do believe him when he says those words to John specifically, whereas I wouldn't necessarily if he said it to anybody else. So there you go. There's some stuff to check out there if you're interested. Let's see. They all sold out here. Holy shit. I thought the comic was actually about MF Doom, not Dr. Doom. I no longer have any interest. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it's not about MF Doom. It's Dr. Doom. The biggest human crisis going on in the world today is the genocide happening in Ethiopia, Sudan, and the Congo by tenfold. No one speaks about that. And that's a really good point, Daryl. There's just these conflicts that are sprouting up everywhere at all times. And like I said, I think the thing that people focus on the most about this one, not saying that those ones don't have Western influences that are maybe pulling some strings. It all just becomes more crystal clear to people when there's very direct support from their government, like's happening in North America or Canada and the United States. But 100%, anytime there's a conflict, there's always a boatload of other conflicts happening in the world. And I 100% agree with you on that one, Daryl. So onto kind of the music world of things. One of the things I got recently, I got a God Waffle Noise Pancakes shirt from the man himself. Grux kind of hooked me up with a guy, Chris, who is printing the shirt. So God Waffle Noise Pancakes, I had the opportunity to contribute to the online festival when they had it during the pandemic. It's kind of a semi-regular event that happens in Oakland where they have a breakfast, they have pancakes, and then there's noise performances. My friend Fletcher has played it a couple of times. He's playing it coming up again soon in a couple of weeks, I think. And they got some shirts made for us Canadians that have eaten too much maple syrup. I asked him if there was any chance he had a double XL, to which he hooked me up with Chris, the guy who was printing the shirts. Chris was really nice and said, if you cover the tax, I'll absolutely print one up for you and send it. So wearing this with great honor to finally have one of these to represent the noise scene down in Oakland. I've been selling some stuff on Discogs again, and I've been doing okay at it, actually. I've made quite a few sales, so I wanted to point anybody in who may be interested in browsing. Here is my page. It is Crack, KKRAKKK, 3 Ks, because I think I probably had another account that I couldn't get into with just the two Ks at the end. So here's the account. Currently, I have 103 items listed. It's tapes. I think there's some records, like some 7-inch vinyl. There's some CDs as well. I don't have any LPs for sale, but if we scroll through it, it really runs the gamut of all kinds of music, from noise to, you know, Perez Prado here. There's some world music from Sublime Frequencies. Since I have Madvillainy on album now on LP, it's a reissue, not the original. I'm throwing up the CD, the Stones Throw Records CD. Some Jatari dub music, Acid Mother's Temperamental and Noise. So a real wide range of music. So anybody who might be interested, go and check it out. If you are watching this and you do want to buy something from my Discog page, contact me first before you place the order through here, and we'll work out some sort of deal as far as like shipping and things. I'll make sure that you get kind of the best deal possible. The way Discogs is set up these days, you have to have one option that kind of covers all the bases, and I don't understand that when it comes to shipping. That is, they expect you to set a shipping price for whatever the media is, whether it's CD, records, or tapes. And I don't quite understand why that is, because I can get different prices for shipping depending on what the items are. I can pack tapes differently than I can pack records, than I can pack CDs, right? So I don't understand why they have that set up here when you're doing your Discogs. But so there's a scroll. It's mostly experimental and noise music, but there is some a little more traditional music. I would say Circle, this Finnish band Circle, that's very rock oriented, you know. So there's some other stuff in there for sure. I'm still going through things. I think this is pretty much all of it. I'm going to go through my LPs as well, but honestly, I don't think there's going to be many, if any, LPs that I'm going to want to sell. So I don't see myself adding any of that stuff. But so if you are interested, check out the Cracked Discogs page. And like I said, I've sold quite a bit of stuff already, which has been really nice. It's allowed me to do things like pay for my antivirus software when the money comes into my PayPal account. I ordered myself a couple of records, a couple of 7-inches, which we'll look at in one sec. So it's nice. I'm trying to. The idea is that I want to try to save up to get myself that Merzbox, that 50 CD Merzbow set that we've spoken about before on one of the Sunday chats. That's kind of the goal. I've probably made about a couple of $100 at this point and have maybe 30 to show of it, because it's all gone to other things. When you have bills and things to pay, obviously that comes first. So I'm hoping that I had this kind of trajectory of selling things keeps going up and I can start banking some of that money. So what I ended up buying was 2 more 7-inches. One of my favorite labels out of the UK is called Ghostbox, and they have a series of 7-inch EPs. There's 10 of them. The series is called Other Voices. They're all 45s. They've all got this beautiful artwork on the sleeve. It's an extra thick record. Just black vinyl, nothing fancy as far as colorways or anything like that. So I got 2 more for the collection. I think I have 6 out of the 10 now. Really, it's a great label in general, but these EPs are really exceptional. There's a wide range of artists: Brooks and O'Hagan, The Listening Center, The Pattern Forms, Steve Moore, Beautified Junkyards, and Bellberry Polly and Moon Wiring Club. I think it's the Beautified Junkyards that, so far out of these, it's been my favorite. So there's kind of the back side there. You can see the Other Voices down at the bottom there. This Beautified Junkyards, I think, was the standout so far. I don't remember if it was the A side or the B side that really blew me away, but such a good record label. It's sort of this. I guess the style of music itself is called kind of hauntology. It's really based on kind of old BBC radio, phonic workshop, and that kind of like vintage kind of sound. But there's some sampled, more like modern sampled elements. There's synthesizers. Each of the bands has kind of a little bit of a different makeup as far as what instruments they bring, but it all has this kind of really classic 60s and 70s television music going on. Cthulhu Hand Luke, nice to see you, man. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, all is good on my end. Hope it's good with you. So they've got this really kind of vintage 60s, 70s TV drama made for like library music kind of sound. That's a very, very basic way to put it. It's more than that, but that's a good kind of umbrella. So love having a couple of more of these. 4 more. There's a guy in Germany that's got the other 4. He doesn't ship to Canada. I've sent him a message through Discogs to see if there's some sort of deal that we can make where if I ordered all 4, would you consider shipping to Canada? And of course, would you consider giving me a little bit of a discount? So I thought we'd look at some other Ghost Box stuff. Over the years, I've picked up what I can find. Some of it has been locally, believe it or not, but I've ordered from them directly a couple of times as well. What is that CD? I don't know what that one is. So I've got some of their CDs. The Bellberry Polly is one of my favorites from the Focus Group, and the Bellberry Polly, I think, are my 2 kind of favorites, and probably the standout acts from the Ghost Box catalog. And you can see like the design on it has that very retro feel to it as well. Julian House, I believe is his name, who does the design for for all of the albums, so they have a little bit of consistent look to it. Another one, New Ways Out. This is the Bellberry Polly as well. Again, with beautiful inside sleeves and artwork. Some amazing lettering there as well for the song titles. The Advisory Circle, yeah, another one that's kind of a standout. This is Other Channels by the Advisory Circle. There's a look at the disc itself. And the sleeve. John Fox and the Bellberry Polly, and the Bellberry Circle, rather. Empty Avenues. I mean, and honestly, with this stuff, I don't know if there's an album that I would point you to over any of the other ones. I'd suggest going to check out their website. They've got sound samples on their website and just sampling some stuff. They do not have a Bandcamp page. This is the Focus Group and Friends Electric Carousel. They don't have a Bandcamp page anymore. They did have one at one point. There might be 1 or 2 albums floating around on Bandcamp, but I think you can only get them digitally. But they do have on their website, you can buy digital or you can buy physical copies. The only thing is, it is coming from the UK if you directly order from them. So that's going to cost you a little bit more to get it shipped. I'm sure there's some people in the States and other parts of the world that have some of this catalog for sale. But that's always one of the bummers. This is Toy Toy Toy, I'm a Hag. Yeah, so I've been listening to, along with continuing with my shellac and Steve Albini listening this week, because I've still been listening to some of that. I'm starting to get into replaying a lot of these Ghost Box. And then here's the final CD, Farmer's Angle, from the Bellberry Polly. This is the revised edition, so just a slim cardboard case. And then just have a few of the 12-inch full lengths the Focus Group stop motion happening. Is that what that says? Yeah, stop motion happening with the Focus Group. Broadcast and the Focus Group. This is a fantastic record. Really, really good. Love this one a lot. One of my favorites. And probably this is probably my absolute favorite out of all of the Ghost Box stuff that I have. Shanktonbury Rings. This is an incredible album. It's a folk tale mixed with some music. So there's a guy named Justin Hopper who does the narration through this and tells kind of the history of Shanktonbury Rings and when it came to kind of witchcraft and magic and things. And then there's some beautiful music to accompany it. I love this album. This is probably the one of the albums that I've listened to the most. So I guess if I would recommend one, I'd say check out Shanktonbury Rings by Justin Hopper, Sharon Krause with the Bellberry Polly. Phenomenal record. I played it on the radio show as well a few times. There's the sleeve itself. And again, the records on these are all just black. They're a little heavy duty, but no colored vinyl or anything. And then finally, the Advisory Circle, another Advisory Circle album. Again, stunning artwork on all of this stuff. Really, really great design. So there you have it. I'm also realizing I need more sleeves. I've bought a bunch of sleeves from, what the hell is it called now? Shit, there's a website. I'll try to remember what website it is and put it in the link to this video or in the description to this video. Completely drawing a blank on it. Clear Sleeves. I think it's Clear Sleeves. There's a US site and there's a Canadian site. They've got these really nice, they have them for 7 inches, for 10-inch records, and for 12-inch. You can get ones that are sealed. They have a little glue strip on the actual package itself, so not on the flap. You can also get some without flap in there, or it's clear. Maybe it's clearbags.com or clearbags.ca. Maybe that's what it is. I love it. It's like putting your comics in Mylar. Everything just ends up looking that much nicer. When it comes to records, that's the one that I'm more than willing to kind of spend that extra little bit to keep them kind of pristine, because I do end up reselling stuff in the future. So I want to try to keep them as beautiful looking as possible. So there we go. That's Ghost Box. Maybe let's see if I can find Ghost Box. Yeah, so ghostbox.co.uk. We'll just show you the site here while we're talking about this. Share. Here we go. So news of new stuff coming out. Videos. They do have a YouTube channel as well too. But here's kind of what the main page looks like. And then you get into the shop down here. There's catalog. So we'll have a look at the catalog here. Sort by title or artist or format. There you go. So you can scroll and just see all that beautiful artwork. Like, look at this. Stunning images, man. It really gives their entire output a feel, just with the consistency of design throughout the whole website. Yeah, there you go, Shanktonbury Rings. It automatically gives everything a feel. Yeah, here we go. So Other Voices number 10. This is one of them that I need. Bellberry Polly. Man, I'd love to finish that. I'd love to finish that series. That's 9. Catalog. Now that I'm looking at this, let's just double check here. Format 10. Oh, where's the shop? That's what I meant to push. Here we go. 7-inch singles. Number 9, 8, 4, 3, and 2. Yeah, so the ones that I have. So unfortunately, they don't keep everything in stock, so I couldn't order directly from them. I did order two of the records. It was number 9 and number 2, I think, that I ordered directly from them. Unfortunately, they don't keep up to date on all of their stock. So there you go. Oh, I don't know if you're seeing that screen. It popped open another screen. Anyway, let's see. Is it Clear Bags? Yeah, there you go. So clearbags.ca is what I've used. And it was in, oops, accept all. Yes, give me all the cookies. I love all the cookies. Crystal clear bags, I think, was the flap seal bags. Album sleeves. Here we go. So under the crystal clear bags section, then you go to album sleeves, and then it's got a breakdown here. So this will be all in Canadian. The BLP 45. Some of them will have the flap and some of them won't. And then it has the price per 25. The minimum you can order is 25 of each of them. And then obviously it can go up from there where you're going to save a little bit of money. So that'll be the order that I make next. Get some more sleeves to kind of finish off the records. You can also get inner sleeves as well too. They're the anti-static ones. They're really high quality. I have a bunch of those as well too for some of my kind of higher end records to keep them. One of the things that you'll find with records, for those of you who are record collectors, taking it out of that sleeve, you build up some static electricity. Dust and everything is immediately drawn to it. Nothing like that happens with these inner sleeves. They're really, really nice sleeves for your records where none of that is going to be generated. So that's worth checking out as well. Anyway, there we go. There's how to protect records the crack way. Anyway, so before we talk about the few books that I read this week, just a couple of books I picked up. Went to 204 Comics today and dug through their $1.50 bins and found a couple of great books. One of them I got, that was not it. That should go over here. That goes over here. Let's see. How am I organized here? There we go. One of the things that I found in the bins, I bought a copy for myself. I know I have one already. I wanted to see if this would be an upgrade. And then I also bought one to pass on to Rasa. They had 4 copies of the Doomsday Squad issue that has the very first Usagi Yojimbo in color backup story. This Usagi Yojimbo story contained in here was recently redone for the Usagi ongoing series. They did a new version of it. It was the same story, but new artwork and a little bit different kind of storytelling, little layout. But this was the first time that Usagi Yojimbo appeared in color in a comic, and this is from Fantagraphics. This series had a couple of interesting backups. The other one I ended up buying, I'm pretty damn sure I've got this one. I thought I was missing one issue from this Doomsday Squad. This one has a Lloyd Llewellyn backup, which is Daniel Clowes. So again, one of those that I just grabbed it. My CLZ app didn't have these in it, so I couldn't kind of double check on them. Sometimes with my CLZ, I find that I'll put stuff in and some of it ends up disappearing over time, and I'm not quite sure why that is. If that's a little bug within the system, but that's happened to me a number of times where I'm pretty damn good at entering things into the CLZ app and you know, sometimes things will just vanish from there. So those were pretty great scores. Those were $1 each. We'll put them here somewhere. Let's put them over there. For 50 cents each, I got 2 issues of Dart. I might have this one still. I know I had it at one point. I know I had this entire mini series at one point, but I think I ended up selling it. It was part of the collection I was helping to sell for our neighbor's mom. I couldn't resist, and then it was because of this issue that I'm like, I've gotta give this another shot and look through this. This art is completely wild in here. Let's get the credits. So this is Bruce Love and Julie Dietrich on story, Joseph Zakaris on art, Chris Eliopoulos on doing the lettering. This art is just fucking wild. The bonus in this one, it sort of has a Pander Brothers look to it. I think it was Colin Blanchett that had turned me on to this originally. I saw him talk about it in one of his videos, one of his Comic Haul videos. One of the things that stood out for me in this one, there's a pinup by Joseph Zakaris in here. That's probably the most bonkers thing. This has got to go up on my wall, I think, somewhere. It's madness, absolute madness. Though those figures are, I don't even know what to say. They're both gorgeous and horrific, both at the same time. I just can't put my finger on what it is about those that really stand out to me. But there you go. So that's Dart issue number 2 and 3. Yeah, 50 cents a piece for those bad boys there. Unfortunately, didn't have any more. Alien 3, again, I think I might have picked this up already, but I didn't have it in my CLZ. So this is issue number 1 of a 4-issue miniseries, a 3-issue miniseries. Stephen Grant, Christopher Taylor, Rick Magyar doing inks, and Jim Massara doing the lettering. Talked about Alien stuff multiple times on the show. I'm pretty much willing at this point to give any of this stuff a shot. So grab this as well. An old free comic book day from Fantagraphics called Funny Book. For those of you who watch the channel who are local, this originally was from Tony's shop, cover to cover, it looks like here. When he was on Pembina Highway, so quite a few years ago at this point, because I think, did he go from St. Mary's to Pembina, or did he go from Pembina to St. Mary's? He went from Pembina to St. Mary's to where he is now. So, and this looks great. A bunch of Fantagraphic artists. I'd never heard of this one. What year was this? 2006. Little Johnny Ryan to greet you on the inside front cover there. So that was a nice 50-cent find there. Really happy to find this. I'm hoping I can eventually get this whole series in the dollar bins. I got 4 more issues of the Seekers series from J.M. DeMatteis with a group of different artists. So this Glenn Barr doing this cover, or doing the art in this one. John J. Muth doing art in this one. The one and only Michael Zulli. This one's pretty fucking banged up in the corner, but whatever, for a buck, I'm okay with that. Michael Zulli doing art here. Michael Zulli doing art in this one. And finally, Jill Thompson doing art in this one. I think I have issues number 1 and 2. So now I've got number 4, number 5, 6, 8, and 11. So really nice to find these for cheap. I hope I can keep that up and get the whole damn thing. The last issue of Ambush Bug that I needed for this first 4-issue miniseries, 4-part miniseries. I was a big fan of Captain Carrot, Ambush Bug, Blue Devil. Those were the DC books that I was also reading when I was back reading Deadman and Spectre. I've recently been picking up Ambush Bug again when I see it. So I think this finishes off the 4-part miniseries. Now I've just got to finish off the Son of Ambush Bug series as well. But funny book. And speaking of Captain Carrot, they did have one in the dollar bin. So I decided to give it a shot. I had this whole series, this whole run at one point, and I remember just loving it. I remember loving the kind of cartooniness of it. Pardon me, Scott Shaw, I believe is the artist's name, right? Yeah, Scott Shaw. Let's actually have a flip through this one here. It's so great to have Captain Carrot in a Mylar bag. It's so ridiculous. Oh yeah, this has been well loved. So good. I remember absolutely loving this book so much. I think at one point doesn't oh yeah, Superman make an appearance? Doesn't don't a few of the actual Justice League make an appearance? So there's a good spread of some of the characters within this. So this will be fun. I don't know how hard I'm going to go to dig into getting all the Captain Carrot, but I'll pick up a couple of issues just to give it a read again. Yeah, some Atari ad on the back. What year was this? This is issue number 14. Oh man, from 1983. So a 10-year-old T. Fuller. Although I don't know if I was reading it at 10 years old. I don't know if it was one of the ones I was getting off the stand. I have a feeling it was later than that I was getting this. I think it had all come out by the time I had started kind of picking this one up. But, you know, memory is a hell of a thing. Great surprise to find Dungeon Mage by Mr. Nate Doyle, who, if you go back in my archives, you can find a interview, conversation I had with Nate Doyle. So 204 does pretty good with trying to get in some small press and independent stuff. I don't know if this was published by Strangers. I don't know if this ended up in the previews catalog or how he got hold of it. I didn't ask him. We talked about other things. But I'm glad that some of my shops are starting to dig into getting Caroline Cash, getting some stuff from these smaller publishers to put in their shop. I'm very excited about this one. I love Nate Doyle's stuff. I love the Crooked Teeth stuff. I don't know how much I'm going to like this one. This is more kind of Dungeons and Dragons fantasy related stuff, which I'm not opposed to. It's just what I like about Nate's writing and his cartooning is that that kind of crime stuff that he was doing in Crooked Teeth. I really responded to that, but I do love his art. He's a hell of a nice guy. Go and check out that interview. I'll try to remember to put the link in the description here as well too, so you can go directly to it without having to hunt through my catalog there. So really, really nice to find that sitting on the shelf. He had like 4 copies of it in as well too, so that's great. Then yesterday, Greg Harder is the local comic book guru here in town. He worked for Comic World way back in the day, which is the big warehouse. We were kind of the distribution hub for getting comics across Canada. Styx Comics and Comic World were kind of big in all of that. So there's a clip that I've shown here before on the channel from not Prisoners of Gravity. What the hell was the other show called? I thought it was something about gravity. I don't remember what the hell the show was called, but they had an interview with Greg Harder when they visited Winnipeg, and he was in the warehouse at the time in one of the buildings downtown, surrounded by comic books. He's still around. He's still active. He's had a collector's, is it the collector's slave, I think is what it's called. I don't remember. Again, I'll put the link in the video as well. He still buys collections. He still sells comics. He has a beautiful setup in his basement. That's where I usually go to visit him. I brought the kids with me as well. I haven't seen him in about a year. We haven't kind of hung out in about a year. So it was really great to see him again. I'm on his mailing list, so when he gets new collections in, as he's going through, he'll put out a bit of a spreadsheet and send it out to the people on his mailing list. I always take some time to scroll through it. He's got a variety of fantastic books. So I picked up a few things from him. One of them is already on the shelf. It was issue 3 of the Fantagraphics anthology called Now. He gave me all of this stuff for a grand total of $30 Canadian. And when you see what I grabbed, you'll realize what a good fucking deal it was. So when I went to pick up the books that I had ordered from him through that email, I found 2 other books on his shelves that I just couldn't resist I grabbed those as well and add them to the stack. So $30 for everything you see here. One of which is the Art of Edina from the Mobius library that Dark Horse was putting out. I have the Edina book, but I never did pick up this one. I haven't picked up everything from that Mobius library. I just can't always afford getting hardcovers. But at that deal, I couldn't resist. He had it priced at $11. It's in beautiful shape. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I've already flipped through this a little bit. Haven't done any reading of it yet, but I'm looking forward to kind of adding this to the shelf upstairs, the Mobius shelf upstairs. Really, really great. The one that kind of blew my mind that he had was, again, I've got the Titan reprints of this Druillet stuff. This is Lone Sloan Delirious. This is from, I think, 1973. Heavy Metal, I think, published this one. Yeah, Dragon's Dream / Heavy Metal. And it is a beautiful soft cover edition of some Druillet. And putting it side by side with the reprints, it's amazing how good the coloring is in this as well too. They've done a really nice job with the Titan stuff. There are some differences, mostly in kind of like brightness, like the levels of the colors, the values of the colors, or the kind of saturation maybe is a better word for the colors, but it's not much. They're pretty kind of close together as far as the coloring goes. There is a difference, but it's not as glaringly obvious as I thought it might be. Again, this one is in beautiful shape. He had it priced at $15, which I would have gladly paid. But again, nice enough to give me a nice discount. Colors like that really remind me of Stokoe. Even that, the style of that art really remind me of James Stokoe. So beautiful to get some Druillet. And the last one that I got from him, which starts us off into our reading, is the Cheech Wizard Book of Me by Vaughn Bodē. Mark Bodē is in here as well too. Fantagraphics hardcover. Got quite a lot of wear on the top here, but the book itself is in beautiful shape. What's amazing about this is the kind of extra material. So this collects all of the Cheech Wizard comic strips, both black and white and color, that have appeared in multiple places, newspapers, underground comics. But what blows me away is kind of the preliminary stuff that you get. You get a lot of sketchbook stuff. You get a lot of just kind of full page art. You get to see his lettering. This looks like it's drawn in pencil in the actual book itself. Everything is this kind of yellowed paper. There's an introduction or foreword by his son, Mark Bodē, just talking about when his dad was creating these strips of Cheech Wizard. He would end up talking about it as if they were kind of real creatures, and they would go outside and kind of hunt for the hat and the lizard. He would take them. He would take his son on hikes, and they'd go to kind of where he said the lair was for these characters, and they'd kind of sit and have a picnic and see if they could see them come out of the sewers. So it really kind of made its way into his life, his dad's storytelling and characters, which I think is really wonderful. The bonus on some of these first pages as well is seeing some of Vaughn Bodē's lettering. It's gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. So the artwork right away is stunning, but have a look at that goddamn lettering, man. That is top notch. And for those of you who are graffiti aficionados, you'll recognize Vaughn Bodē and Cheech Wizard from early graffiti. He had a style that translated really well for these pieces on walls in New York. So a bunch of his characters were used in some of that early graffiti. And even his bubble lettering and stuff too has some of that real graffiti kind of look to it. And you get stuff like this, like little scrap paper sketches and doodles of characters and designs that he would be working on. Great book, breakdown of all of the characters within the universe with a little bit of a description of them. We get a few pages of that. Some more kind of sketchbook or scrap paper doodles and drawings. Amazing, amazing. I'm sure that this is one of those Fantagraphics books that's long out of print, and I'm really, really glad to have my hands on this sucker. And then we get into some of the strips. So then we get into the rest of the book, which has a collection of, in this case, looks like probably stuff from maybe some underground newspapers, some black and white stuff. We get a ton of black and white stuff. And then near the end, we start getting into the full color strips as well too. So I've started reading this, and I'm loving it so far. It's got its own rhythm. It's got its own kind of sense of humor, but it's beautiful. Vaughn Bodē is great, and like I said, also at the back there is some Mark Bodē stuff as well. So amazing score from Greg. Thank you very much. We also stopped in at Book Fair downtown when I was looking for that Doom one-shot, and they had a whole bunch of Dick Tracy stuff, some reprints of early Dick Tracy stuff. So I picked up one of the kind of these oversized volumes. Is this Dragon Lady Press, maybe? I don't remember if it's... I know they had some Dragon Lady Press stuff. Maybe this one wasn't. Had a few volumes of this nice kind of glossy cover, reproductions of kind of old ads from those comics, and then a nice chunk of comics. Does it have a year? Let's see. It doesn't. 10 centers. I can't easily make out the year. The reproductions aren't the clearest that they could be. They do end up getting a little kind of blown out at times, but I love that kind of stuff. I like seeing the age on it. Yeah, it's great to see the crystal clear and crisp stuff for some of this cartooning. For sure it is. I would say that Chester Gould is one of those guys where you also want to see the clarity of his line, but there is something to be said for this kind of reproduction, as it might have looked a little closer to what it might have looked like at the time coming out in print. So this will be fun. Dick Tracy isn't a character that I've read a ton of stuff on, kind of dip my toes in here and there. So I'm looking forward to this. And like I said, they had quite a lot of this stuff at Book Fair. So if I do dig it, I know where to go to get some more. So pretty good one. And then to kind of wrap it up here, the stuff that I read this week. Put that over here. Let's see. I got my hands on Dawn Runner issue number 1. We talked about Dawn Runner issue number 2, another Ram V comic that I was curious about. Maybe I'll go up one notch on this here. Another Ram V comic that I was curious about. I love the art in this one. I think it's really beautiful. This was a good issue to kind of fill in the gaps, give me a little bit more of the backstory of this world. It didn't kind of change the complexity of it. I still, as we're supposed to, we're still kind of unsure of what's going on when she kind of has this link to this other human in some other, we're not sure if it's another universe, if it's where this person is located, if it's on another planet, and how they're able to kind of connect telepathically. Our main character is a Dawn Runner, which is she kind of controls these mechs telepathically, and because of that connection, there's something that's gone on with that connection that's allowed her to connect with this other human being. And let's see that page. The art is gorgeous. It's beautiful looking stuff. The coloring is really, really nice. Evan Cagle is the artist. Script by Ram V. Colors by Dave Stewart. Letters by Aditya Bidkar. And this page here. Excuse me. So there's where she's first kind of making a connection with this other guy here in this other world, reality, whatever it is, universe. There's the first kind of time that she kind of makes that connection with him. So it was good to get a little bit more of the backstory and get my hands on that first issue. It is one I'm going to keep up with for sure. I want to see where this goes. I'm willing to give Ram V a chance, a little bit of a chance anyway. It depends on at least this independent stuff. I don't know if I'd go back to Ram V superhero stuff after the Swamp Thing kind of just didn't really lead to anywhere that was super exciting to me. Of course, we had Sacrificers issue number 8, which I'll talk about with Rasa next weekend. I don't want to say much here other than, of course, I love this fucking issue. Sacrificers is a top-notch book so far, 8 issues in, and every single time I bring it home, it's the first one that I sit and read. It hasn't disappointed yet. It feels like it keeps ramping up every single issue. It's going to lead to it has that feeling like it's going to lead to something pretty big, pretty damn soon. And I'm very excited to see where that one goes. Again, another book where I'm just absolutely adoring the art. Usagi Yojimbo, Stan Sakai. This is The Crow part 2 of 5. This is one of those, I can't remember if we talked about it last week or not. But this was another great issue. The cousin gets kidnapped and they end up talking about the soul of a samurai is in his sword. And to kind of show that they're not playing games, they break his cousin's sword and send it back to Usagi saying, come and meet us or your cousin is done for, kind of thing is how it's left off in this one. Just always solid stuff from Sakai. I'm really glad I've gone over to picking these up in single issue form. It did take me a while to kind of get on board with that, even though I do enjoy the character and enjoy the stories. I'm glad I'm there now. I guess probably the disappointment, well, one of the disappointments, let's get both of these out of the way. Maybe we'll do it in this order here. One of the biggest disappointments of the reading week so far was Torpedo 1972. This is issue number 1. And then I've also got issue number 2. These are from Ablaze. Man, was this a stinker. I was really looking forward to it. I'm a fan of Eduardo Risso's artwork myself. I know that there's people that aren't so crazy about it. I happen to really like it. I've always liked it. I had hopes that this book was going to be fun. This just really fell flat, and it's the dialogue that really is a stinker to me. I don't know what the intent is with some of this kind of pseudo comedic writing, but I feel like it just doesn't work in the slightest. Damien was in the chat this afternoon too, and he said that issue number 2 does pick up a little bit, but that kind of clunky dialogue doesn't really get that much better. So I am willing to give number 2 a chance. I do have this on my pull list. I may cancel it depending on how this reading of issue number 2 goes. It's been sitting on the stack here for about a week staring at me, and I just haven't picked it up after reading issue number 1. I didn't pick up number 2 and read it right away. So that was a bit of a disappointment. That's rare that happens, to be honest, where I feel that kind of negative about it. It just was not a fun reading experience. 18 issues in of Kaya, and I'm starting to feel somewhat similar about this. I'm still loving the art. Wes Craig's art is beautiful, but honestly, the story itself is kind of falling flat for me a bit. I'm not as excited about it, and I haven't been very excited about it for the last number of issues, but I think it's now catching up to a point where it's just like there's just not enough happening within each issue that to catch my attention. I'm really losing interest. I really don't care what's going to happen to these characters anymore. The next issue is going to be a one-off where we get more conversation about Kaya's arm. It looks like it might be something in the future from this story. I don't quite know yet. I'm curious to read that one. That one I'll be getting, but This one is pretty close in my mind to coming off the pull list, where I just don't know if I want to continue with it, which is too bad because it started off so strong. Those first, Ross and I were talking about it this afternoon, those first kind of 8 or 10 issues were so good and so engaging and so nicely paced. It feels like maybe he just blew his wad a little too quick within those, where there's now not much more to say within these stories. There's not much more to kind of keep your interest. We'll see where it goes. I mean, I'm willing to at least give it another issue or two. But other than that, I think once I hit issue 20, it's really going to be the time where I take a hard look at it. And if issues 19 and 20 don't kind of hit me, this one may go by the wayside. The other one that just was mildly interesting was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Black, White, and Green. I'm all about these black, white, and whatever. Black, white, and red, black, white, and yellow, black, white, and blue, whatever it happens to be. I'm always willing to give this stuff a shot. They're short stories. It's a good kind of showcase for artists. It's not necessarily the best showcase for writers. There are some that have hit pretty good, though. There was a couple in the Elektra series that I really enjoyed. There's been some great stories in the Batman Black and White. There was some good stories in the Superman. What was it? Was that one Black, White, and Red, or Black, White, and Blue? I don't remember, but there was some actually surprisingly good stories in that Superman book as well, too. This one had one that kind of stood out to me by Jesse Lonergan that I did like. The other ones, though, there was nothing about them that really drew me in. I'm fine not knowing artists. Declan Shalvey is a name that I know. I don't know where I know it from. Gigi Dutre is a name that I don't know. And then Paulina Ganicho is a name that I don't know as well. And like I said, that doesn't bother me, not knowing who the artists are. I'm willing to give people a chance. And I find in this format, you can really get a good sense of someone's style. This first story, the art isn't too bad. But again, like it's just the story itself just didn't grab me. It wasn't anything to write home about. And that's kind of the way it is with all of these, that yes, the art is good in some of them, but the stories themselves don't even really kind of translate well as a good short story. This is the Jesse Lonergan art one, which this was my favorite of the 4 stories in here. I love his page layouts. I love his use of kind of smaller panels within the page to kind of keep parts of the story moving. Like down in here, you get some action. I love his mixing up. He still does it within a fairly strict grid most of the time, but I do like the way he separates the page into these multiple little panels. I think the green looks nice in all of these stories, but I think in his, I feel like it works the best. It kind of, everything has this kind of green wash to it. And then the last 2 stories, there was just nothing really that stuck with me about any of them. I couldn't even honestly tell you much of the story. None of it really sunk in or stuck in my memory whatsoever. And the art, again, was just nothing that was my taste. I'm sure there's people that love this artist. Just for me personally, it didn't do anything for me. The last story had a little bit of promise because it sort of had this animated series kind of style going on. But again, it just wasn't anything too interesting. So I don't know if I'm going to keep up with this one. I didn't put it on my pull list or anything. I just picked it off the shelf just to give it a shot. I'll probably end up looking through the next issue. There's the cover for the next issue. I'll probably end up flipping through it just to see what artists are in the book itself. And then I'll decide whether or not I'm going to keep it or pick it up, rather. The one thing I wish I would have gotten was there's a James Stokoe cover. I didn't see it when I went to Galaxy. They didn't have it on the shelf anyway, or if they did, I completely missed it because I would have loved that cover. As it was, this was the cover that kind of stood out to me the most. I thought this was a pretty striking image. It almost looks like a sketch cover. It has that kind of look to it. kind of blank sketch cover, taking it to a show vibe to that image. 420, how are you? Yeah, unfortunately, many anthologies aren't as good as we got in the 70s and 80s, but I keep trying them. Yeah, and like I said, I'm pretty willing to give books like this a chance, because you tend to get some pretty creative artists in this stuff trying their hand at these characters and doing some short stories. But that one was a bit of a flop. The final book of the night, Batman Dark Age #1, and then I got the Paul Pope variant cover for issue #2. A couple of things. The first thing is, I love this book. I thought it was really fun. Dan Elson. Oh yeah, you bought it for the Stokoe cover and the Lonergan story, but I haven't read it yet. And Damien's opinion was the same as yours. Yeah, I saw his video saying pretty much the same thing. I love this book. This is the kind of Batman stuff that I do like. As far as Batman being played out, it really isn't a character that interests me much these days. But when they do stuff like Batman the Audio Adventures or Batman the Adventures Continue, those are the things I'm really into. I find they take a little bit, in those specific cases, a little bit more of a lighthearted look at the character, and I like that kind of look at it. This is so good. It still has a little bit of that darkness, but it's very much an Elseworlds story. The other thing that I'll give them credit for, you get the variant cover. When you open up the variant cover, you get the regular edition cover right on the inside. I kind of like that, to be honest. I know people will probably bitch about the page count of the internal book, one of them being the front cover. That's bullshit. I understand that. I think it's a great thing. I'll take that any day. You get sort of the best of both worlds there, the variant. And like I said, how often do you see Paul Pope anymore? That's a beautiful cover. So this one is sort of an Elseworlds. It doesn't say... let's see. It doesn't say Black Label on it anywhere that I can see, but it feels like it would sit firmly in that Black Label / Elseworlds kind of world, because we're visiting a elderly Bruce Wayne in an old folks home as he's reliving his life. His memory is going. He can't quite remember things. So then we get just this wild story of how he became Batman that has hints of things that we've known from kind of the history of the character. But there's a lot of stuff that isn't, that just doesn't hit the mark, like his parents going to see the Zorro movie alone, him not being with them. At one point, he ends up going to jail at the beginning of the second issue. So good. The Allreds knock it out of the park as usual. Damien this afternoon was saying that the same creative team also did Superman Space Age, which I do remember seeing on the shelf and having a flip through it, but I never picked it up, and I kind of regret that. I want to go back and find it. Rasa and Damien were also saying that this Mark Russell, who's the writer, he did a Flintstones book as well too, and I remember that Flintstones book being a real big hit with people in our kind of YouTube corner here of the comics world. So that might be one I revisit once this is over and give that a shot. Maybe that'll be try to pick that one up from the library. Yeah, I really enjoy this book. Ra's al Ghul makes an appearance in the second issue here as well, which I'm a huge Ra's al Ghul fan. Bruce Wayne ends up going to Vietnam and being put in this kind of elite forces group that's run by Ra's al Ghul, and he gets some special training. And this was a pretty great little section. One of the things that Laura Allred does so well is the coloring on here. You don't lose Bruce Wayne on this page, even though that background, the night sky, is very dark. She still has a good handle on kind of separating the character out of the page and just kind of having that white border around the panels themselves. Even on this page, I think obviously adds to that, as well as kind of putting a spotlight on it. But it's beautiful stuff, man. It's a damn good book. I'm very curious where it's going to go. it does get boring having the origin story of characters told time and time again. So at least this one is doing it with the opportunity to fuck around with that origin story a little bit. This one caught my attention as well too, just by this cover. But I think in that same video, Damien was saying that it didn't kind of hit. I like the art on that cover, but I think even when he showed the interiors of it, it looked pretty promising. But he said the story wasn't much to write home about, so I don't think I'll take a chance on that one. I will, however, be sticking with this. DC, I know you're listening. I know that you tune in every week. Please give us another Audio Adventures series, because that was one of my favorite reads of last year. And I would love to have some more. In the meantime, I will gladly take Batman Dark Ages. I believe there's going to be at least 5 issues of this. That's great. I'd much rather stuff like this be more of a limited series. I don't want to now sign up for like a 20 issue or 30 issue series of this. I want just something like 4, 5, 6 issues, I think would be a perfect amount for something like this. So yeah, a really nice surprise. It's nice that stuff like that is still on the shelves. Oh yeah, and then thought it was about time I gave Orwell's 1984 a reread. I haven't read this since I was a teenager, so I went to Chapters and got a copy. They had a whole bunch of them in stock, all with different covers. This was just one of the cheaper ones, so I picked this one up. And I'm still trucking on through this Jack London, The Iron Heel. And it's starting to lose me a little bit, so I'm hoping it picks up. Not that the character isn't interesting and the world isn't interesting. So far, the story is just kind of telling me things that I already feel and that I already know. So you're sort of preaching to the choir with this so far. I do have faith that there's going to be some twists and turns coming. But so far, I think I'm like 4 or 5 chapters into it. I haven't had a ton of time to read this week. Pretty much none, to be honest. With work this week has been picking up. So I'm hoping that it takes me somewhere. I am still really liking the notes at the bottom of the page that gives some of the, at that time in history, yada, yada, yada. This meant that, the other thing. We look on this now as something that's really just unbelievable. Can you believe that they would do that sort of thing? So I like sitting it feels like we're sitting in the middle of this story where there's a lot of the stuff that's happened in the past that is still currently happening, or it takes place rather in the past. And then there's this commentary coming from the future. And as a reader, you're kind of stuck right in the middle of those two worlds. I like that approach. But like I said, a lot of the stuff he's kind of talking about are things that aren't kind of revelations to me. And I feel like I need some more. I need something else. When is the twist coming? When is something creeping up? So I'm going to tuck into this week. It should be quieter this week for work, I'm hoping, so I can tuck into that a little bit more and then start reading 1984. I think that's it. Thanks very much, everybody, for coming to hang out. 420, Cthulhu Han, Luke, Daryl D, Dan Elson. I appreciate you guys dropping into the chat. And we will see you all next week. All right, take it easy.